Today is a very exciting day, for I'm about to harvest some worm castings. You heard me right, worm castings. I know. For most people, they're not going to get excited over such a task, but for me, it is very rewarding. So here we are over at my bathtub worm bin, made out of an old cast iron tub and an old trampoline that I use as a liner. I've got some rocks at the bottom of the tub, and the liner allows the castings and the worms to stay put while the leachate's able to drain out. And that goes right out the drain hole in the tub into a bucket down below. So for quite some time now, I've been using what I'll term the half and half system. That's where I replenish just half of the bin at a time. So once most of the material on this side was broken down and we had some beautiful castings, I began to feed just the left side of the bin here, allowing all the worms to migrate over and leave me just pure castings over here. You'd be hard pressed to find a single worm in here now. They've all come over to this side on their own. And I just did a feeding, sprinkled a little straw in there, just wanted to see how that works out. So let's see what we got. And the worms are remaining very active throughout these winter months as we're maintaining about a 65-degree Fahrenheit temperature just by simply having this seedling heat mat atop this cardboard here. Just give a little buffer zone to the worms. So while the worms are over there eating away, I'm going to now harvest all these castings out of this bed. All right, so this is my setup here. You may have seen this before. I just have this old kitchen trash can I cut the bottom out of, and I've got a bunch of these chicken feed bags. These are made out of the same material as like a sandbag, and all I do is insert this into the bag like so I can easily begin filling this up. And I like to scoop and harvest out the castings using this large ice scooper, as it's got rounded edges, no sharp points that can damage the liner. My friends, it doesn't get any easier than this to produce some of the absolute best fertilizer that you can add into your garden. If you are a gardener, you should undoubtedly be creating worm castings on site. All of this material was created for free, just putting in kitchen scraps from the garden, just a small initial setup cost. If you're building your own bin, you could really bring it down to almost zero. You may need to purchase some red wiggler worms to add into your bin. Other than that, it's up to you. If you want to buy something that's already made, which no problem with that, or if you want to put something together, there's many ways to do it. I have a couple different videos on ways you could build your own, and I'll drop those links down below so you can check it out. But this stuff right here, it's material money can't buy. Sure, you can buy quality worm castings from your local nursery or even online. Nothing wrong with that. But if you want the freshest material with the highest concentration of microbes, which is one of the greatest benefits to worm castings, it's the microbes that are like little construction workers working hard day and night in your garden, creating some of the best soil structure that money can't buy, then you really need to be creating your own worm castings at home. It helps to create a nice, light, fluffy soil. It helps with aeration, and you can't overdo it with worm casting fertilizer, meaning overfeed your plants like you can with NPK-based fertilizers, synthetic fertilizers. I mean, you can literally grow directly in this stuff if you want. And although NPK is very important to your soil's health, that's nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, it's the worm castings that are going to help your plants to actually uptake those elements. And there's trace elements in here. It's loaded with minerals, with enzymes. All right, so we got one bag filled as much as I want to fill it. Now that's a heavy sack of moist worm castings. And I may or may not sift or screen these castings. There could be some viable seed in here, but I oftentimes just add this directly into the garden. And I know this is going to provide me with about 70 pounds because I did a complete harvest on video for you guys in the past, the whole tub, and it equaled about 140 pounds. So if you were aiming to fertilize your garden entirely for free, you could set up a worm bin like this and also consider utilizing urea. As long as the urine doesn't contain pharmaceuticals and it doesn't contain any bacterial infection or disease, It has an NPK of about 11.12. So it's high in nitrogen, needs to be diluted. Again, I've made a video on that as well. And you may think that that's a really low phosphorus potassium number, but the reality is that most plants don't actually take up the full value of a fertilizer when it says, let's say 11, 11, 11. In most situations, the plant is only going to take up a fraction of that number for many reasons. It can't utilize all that product. A lot of it's going to get flushed out of the soil through watering and such. Even if you're using a liquid feed, the plant's not going to uptake all of that. But with the use of worm castings, whatever it does get fed, it'll be able to fully utilize. I'm just sharing this with you guys because gardening does not need to be expensive. Although whatever monies you do put into it, it truly is an investment, not just in your property value and the cost savings when it comes to groceries, but your health, your happiness, your well-being. I'm making the birds happy, I'm making the bees happy, the butterflies happy, the dragonflies. Just look at this caked up worm castings here at the bottom of the bin. Just absolute cake. Look at this. There are so many microbes in here, and if you really want to stretch this material out, you make what's known as compost tea by aerating some worm castings along with a little bit of nutrition for the microbes, something like liquid kelp. You can proliferate the microbes. You can turn 1 million microbes into 1 billion over a 24-hour period, and then do a foliar feed or root drench with that liquid. And your plants are going to thrive on that, and they're going to become very resilient to pest, disease, and drought. To also be able to better regulate too much water, flooding. When we work on the soil tilth, soil structure, and we will be restructuring soil that's not good when we add in worm castings. Well, you're going to, again, allow for better aeration as well as drainage. Bag number 2. I like these bags because they're breathable. There's living microbes in here, and if you just put it into a solid plastic bag, it's not going to be able to breathe. It may develop fungal mold problems. So that's pretty good. I think I'll take the rest of this here and sprinkle it directly into the garden. So for all the folks who've commented on the channel, and there's been plenty, asking me how to keep a worm bin alive throughout the winter. Well, I know some folks get down to extremely cold temperatures, but these seedling heat mats are waterproof, and you don't have to just lay it on top. You could actually put one on either side of your bin, one on the bottom, one on the top, and I'd plug it into a digital thermostat. I'll show you, I've got one. And that way you can dial in the temperature to 65 degrees, which is a nice comfortable temperature for the worms to thrive in. You don't want it getting too hot, which, believe me, that could happen even in snowy winter weather conditions. If you have too much heat going on in there, it could heat up pretty quick. But you can get you an electric thermostat like this. It comes with a probe, and this plugs into the wall, and you plug in your seedling heat mat here. You could put in a multi-prong outlet into there and regulate several heating pads at the same time. And those are cheap and well worth the investment as well. All right, so here's the bedding I'll be using. This is coconut coir that I rehydrated. It was an 11-pound brick, like this. And this stuff here makes a wonderful worm bedding. Then I just add my food scraps right into here. I can dig a little hole, bury my banana peels, what have you, in here, and just keep doing that. Eventually this breaks down in volume and sinks quite a bit. So that's set now. I'm actually not going to be doing anything on this side for now. I just wanted to pull the harvest. I'm going to keep feeding on this side over here and allow the worms to fully break down the rest of the material before I then start feeding over here, and they'll migrate over to this side. Then I'll just repeat the process once again, but instead I'll be harvesting this side. Anyway, my friends, talk about easy, rewarding, and free. And what a great way to utilize those food scraps that would otherwise just end up in the garbage, head to the dump. Instead, you're turning it into premium soil conditioning fertilizer, full of microbes, full of life, which is going to increase the health of your plants and in turn, increase the health in you. So with that, I want to thank you all for watching. Have yourself a great rest of the day. Until next time, this is Dan from PlantAbundance.com. Take care. I'll be talking to you again soon.